It's board game vibe time, and today we're looking at Twilight Imperium 4th edition. And the vibe is it's big. Big that it needs its own rulebook. Big that it comes in this big box which contains a lot of things, including all these different factions. And big ultimately because it needs a big table. And finally, you need a full day. One big full day to play it. Game goes from, from 4 to 6, the settings, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can't imagine playing with 6. We had 4 player. We started at 10 a.m. Took an hour for the rules explanation, even though we'd watched the online videos and read all the rule books and all these things. Then first round, I think the first round itself took about an hour and a half because we were slowly going through to make sure we actually worked out what we were doing properly. Of course, there's the lunch break, and then with the intent going in. But the game is so immersive. I thought we were going okay. It was 4:30. I looked at the time. It was 6:30. We broke for pizza, having spent a whole day eating chips and nonsense. So it's an unhealthy activity, Twilight Imperium. All for Mechatol Rex. Now, you would think at the end of game, because what we see here is the final remnants of the game, there'd be someone at Mechatol Rex, but every game has its story. And our one had a story where the blue player needed to race away to get his last victory point. Amazing, interesting game. Let's sort of look at it, how it plays, but Twilight Imperium. Well, how do you play Twilight Imperium? If I took the theme completely away, it's first to 10 victory points. That is extremely themeless. Twilight Imperium is a space opera, if anything, of fighting and trading and strategizing, and more importantly, trying to understand the rules. There's a lot of rules in this game, and not that they're complex, it's just the number of them, such that to understand them, you'll need to prepare beforehand. Get your friends to read the rules properly. There's both a learn to play and a living player's guide. Watch some videos, see some example play, and even then you'll be spending the day. Make sure everyone's got a copy of the rules printed out, because we'll be doing clarifications, etc. That said, I would think of that as more of a feature, not a flaw. That's the nature of this game, especially despite the fact it's so huge. In my instance, at least, I think I can only play this during Christmas. It's the only time I can get people committed for such a big day and do some prep. Again, more of a feature, not a flaw. Of course, it is worth it. You start playing, you get so immersed that at the end you decide there's a story. There's a story in this game. You'll talk about, I think, playing this game and what happened much longer. In fact, in terms of timing, you probably need to add another hour and a half at the end for the game review as you go through and try to work out how many times I got this game wrong, how many times I failed making the right decisions. 20/20 hindsight is something you need to let go with in Twilight Imperium. You just have to enjoy it. It's more of an experience. Winning and losing, as always, it's nice, but I think it's more the feel and understanding this particular game. So let's go into, I think, how the individual players might have played, starting myself, and hopefully we'll touch on some of the rules that we didn't really get right. So for this game, I played the Barony of Latnev, and I have to be honest, I don't think I played it well. The Barony is supposed to be quite an aggressive type, and I didn't even build a war sun, but I tended to try to build a lot. I think with this game you can get carried away by all the plastic that's given to you and the feel that you need to build every piece of plastic. So in the end, I think after 8 hours of gaming, all I did was attack one single fighter. But I developed all these troops, which I never used. In the end, instead of developing a military armada, I think I developed a military showroom. I probably have the squeakiest, cleanest, untouched fighting flotilla that's ever existed. And that's why I didn't win this game. Another reason why I didn't win this game is there's a card which is quite useful called Serene Tools. And essentially you save 1 unit, and every round I kept forgetting to use it. No, I didn't forget to use it. I only remembered about 5 minutes after I did a cost thing. And that's part of this game again. I think it's a feature and a flaw. 2 things I'd add also. You need your glasses for this one, because not only to read the small card print, but you'll be going backwards and forwards from the rules. The table of contents in the living rules is your friend. And secondly, I realise for filming it's not great, but you definitely need a perspex thing to keep the tiles down. So you've got a playing surface to put all the plastic. I can't imagine playing this without that. The tiles must leap, and I tend to use a bit of material on the tablecloth to makes it easy to pick up cards, etc. But I enjoyed it, even though in the end, for such an aggressive race, all I did was build. I think it's just the process. You can get excited, but so I got my planets. And I guess the other thing is I never really got going. At the very end, I got some of my command tokens, but most of the time I was bereft of command tokens. So it's pointless having the world's best, shiniest military if you've got no petrol to move it. And similarly, no upgrades as well. So, yeah, not the best effort, but that's how you play Twilight Imperium not. So the purple player took the role of the University of Jolnar, and at least with these form of combinations, you can get player colours linked to this, I guess, the base colour of the faction, which does help a lot. 3 of the players have played the game twice 2 years ago, which really didn't help that much in memory of rules, etc., although I guess we get a vibe for the overall arch of the game. And when we played it last time, the University of Jolnar wins, so we gave this to him. It's also an interesting one because it's a bit like the Vagabond in Root. You've got focused on technologies to the point that you can sort of be happily doing your stuff and hopefully pick up a lot of points through the technologies as part of the winning conditions. He played an interesting game. I think he was more focused on developing those technologies. Of the 3 players, Jim was the case, everyone had a chance in the last round to win, and I think he was essentially 1 card away in terms of the strategy cards to get a combination of the 4 victory points, and take him from 6 to 4. But definitely enjoyed the game and played it well. I think this one, I won't say is one-dimensional, but it's definitely focused on trying to get those technologies up and getting that engine running. Also, not as bad in terms of military strength as well. And at least, and the sad thing is, the universities did more battles than I did, which again shows how terrible my attempt at being an aggressive race was. The Emirates of Hakan was our yellow player, and he played a good game, actually. And previously, in the previous game, he did the run for Mechatol Rex and decided to do that again, which got us, and he got there quite early. As you can see, he didn't end up there because the very first law, and very unfortunate, was for us to vote on, was the law which basically said all units on Mechatol Rex get blown to buggery. And unsurprisingly, we all voted against him, so he wasn't happy with that. But I think this is part of this game. It's being getting tied in the emotion. But he did an interesting comeback. And the problem with Mechatol Rex is that if it leaves a vacuum, someone will fill it. And so the blue player came in and basically occupied it for the rest of the game. But to his credit, he decided to start looking at the victory point conditions, and started some niggle with the purple player to get some stuff. But a well-played game, and definitely well done in coming second place. And also, again, was almost able to win on the round if it wasn't for the blue player having a secret objective card. And our winner was the blue player who was playing the Federation of Sol. These guys breed like rabbits, and you also get an extra token to help push along your tactics. And the strange thing I think with this one is, despite the game very long, you really need to have a strategy at the beginning and go to it. And this player did. Whilst I was happily just building weapons and ships, seemingly for a game that might go for 20 hours, he'd already managed to get to Mechatol Rex once has been emptied by us all voting the Emirates of Hakan out, and occupied it most of the game. But he also had some hidden victory point cards. So it was interesting. So on the last round, he won because he was fortunate. Well, I won't say fortunate, about unveiling the flagship. So one thing I was not that greatly aware of is that there are action point cards, hidden victory point cards that can be revealed during the actual action phase rather than the status phase. So he got the jump of us there. And the other thing that he found was we ended up, as part of the voting laws agenda, the Shard of the Throne, which ended up being a poison chalice, because at this point the Federation of Sol was the strongest player, and the Shard basically gives a person the victory point, whoever holds the card. So we can vote for someone else to get the card, but it was very hard for us to give it to someone who was far enough away for him not to invade them. So we gave it to the yellow player, and on this round he took it off the yellow player, and so he got those 2 victory points and went from 8 to 10. But a well-played game. I think they had their strategy in mind and they played it through to the end. But so I think in a strange game, you need to have focus from the beginning to work out what you need to do to hit the road running, as they say. Although a road in a space game is probably not the best analogy. But let's go for some final thoughts. So Twilight Imperium, and let's start the final review clock now. Should you buy this game? Well, actually, let's jump back. Should you play it? Yes, you should play it, but you should only play it with good preparation. This is not a game where you just turn up and ask people to, can you explain the rules to me? You definitely need to watch a lot of the videos, but more importantly, the learn to play and the core rules, the living rules, which are, at this time of recording is version 1.3, are very important. And in fact, you must agree that it is the living rules and the learn to play which are key, because in our game, a number of times people are saying, but in the video, this person said that, or this other person said that. And actually, they will get it wrong as much as we got it wrong. So it's always important to go back to the source material. So some of the rules, I've forgotten half the stuff that we got wrong, but for example, movement, the idea that you can move through an area you've already locked out to get to an area that you've just activated, with the idea that when you come to a system, you can put resources and invade both planets, is some rules we needed to clarify. There's a whole list of them. The living rules are very important because the how to play guide is very good, but it leaves gaps. And unfortunately, you interpret them as if there are additional rules they're not. So they're written very cleverly, but also maybe they should have put an extra 1 or 2 pages to help with the clarifications or the exceptions, or more importantly, assumptions that you have when you read rules. So if you're prepared, I definitely play it. So for us, this is definitely a holiday game. This is not the standard Friday night fare, because one, you certainly need more than 2 hours. You need a full day. You have to make the day an event. And this is a game which is an event. It's more an event than a game, but it's definitely worth it. Time surprisingly goes quick and you'll get immersed in this particular game. Should you own a copy? If you know someone who's got one, fantastic. I think it depends on, are you a collector? Are you just a gamer? Certainly this wouldn't be part of my original 50 games, but after that, I think it's worth happening. This is a classic of board gaming. Does it value its position in terms of the price you pay versus the number of games. I expect I'll only play this at best once a year, probably more likely only once every 2 years, but for me it's worth it. I think already the 2 experiences I've had with this game have been worth the fairly expensive money I've laid down on it. But yeah, I recommend it. So in terms of cost, I think it's not a necessary addition to your gaming library. It's a nice to have. Much like my sand timer. I don't really need it, but I like it. And that is the board game vibe on Twilight Imperium.